It is requested to all the participants, faculty members, and students of Computer Science Department to stay back in the auditorium for the keynote sessions and the expert talks. Kindly remain at your seats, please. All students and faculty members are requested to kindly take their seats. Now we are starting with the keynotes of day 1. Coming together is the beginning, keeping together is progress, and working together is success. With this motive of gaining and sharing knowledge and expertise in our respective fields, let's embark on this journey together with the experts arrived here. Today we have our esteemed guest, Dr. Alpana Rajan Ma'am, Head Advanced Applications and Scientific Computing Section, RRCAT Indore.
Dr. Rajan has received her PhD in computer science from Devi Ahilya Vishwavidyalaya, Indore, India in year 2014. She has joined Department of Atomic Energy in 1989. Presently, she is working as an outstanding scientist and associate director of technology development and support group at RRCAT, which is R&D unit of DAE. She leads computer division at RRCAT, and her research interests include high-performance computing and high-bandwidth interconnect and network security. She has played pivotal role in establishing centralized computing facility for R&D project at RRCAT. She has planned, designed, and deployed high-performance computing clusters providing 240 teraflops of sustained computing power to the scientists and engineers of RRCAT. She is currently leading a team of 57 engineers and software professionals. She has more than 110 publications in journals and peer-reviewed the conferences. She received Devi Ahilyabai Holkar Nari Gaurav Alankaran Award in 2014 for her outstanding contributions in the field of science and technology, and also DAE Excellence Science, Engineering and Technology Group Achievement Award. I humbly request Madam to share her knowledgeful insights related to the topic's latest trends in high-performance computing.
Good morning, everyone. Good to see a large number of academicians, students, and researchers in this hall. And first of all, I would like to thank the organizers to give me an opportunity to deliver my keynote speech on trends in high-performance computing. And this is my field of specialization, and I have been working in this field for past 34 years in Department of Atomic Energy. One second. To bring the audience on the same platform, first of all, I will give a brief introduction of the topic so that everyone knows what is the high-performance computing. Although every one of us is a user of this, but architect of this technology, you have to be, as computer science engineer, you have to become architect of the technology, not mere user of this. So what is the technology behind so that everyone is at par? Then evaluation. Yeah. So beyond after introduction, I'll tell you about the Moore's law, which is the basic behind the superconducting technology which we see today, and the evolution of supercomputers, and then high performance computing clusters which are available at Department of Atomic Energy, which we will be then, I will give you a brief about the cluster computing also, because you might have read in your notebook, textbooks, but to give you a feel of practical exposure, certain basic things I'll be briefly telling you. And then what are the HPC applications at DAE? What are the HPC applications in general in our country? And then the latest trends, exascale computing, quantum computing, a bit of it, then neuromorphic computing, analog computing, and things like that. And at the end, some concluding remarks. As we all know that computing is very essential requirement for computational intensive applications. And the field could be in the physics, chemistry, mathematics, even computer science, but the applied computing is used in our day-to-day life, as the previous speakers have told that even in day-to-day life, you have a very powerful computer in your pocket, that is a smartphone. The technology remains the same at the back end, and then it is done basically, if you see high performance computing, it is used for simulation, modeling, forecasting, and predictive analysis of the huge amount of data which is generated every day. Conventionally, computing was carried out on a very large scale machines, like it used to take something about more than this big hall to house the machine, lot of power requirements. Still, power requirements are still there. The cooling requirements are there to cool down the machine, but now miniaturization and the software trends have led to AI/ML technologies. So you have a computing machine in your pocket which is using ARM processor. And broadly speaking, computing can be divided broadly in two parts. Sequential computing, you all know that. You put the input, you get the output on one single machine that could be having multiple cores, multiple processors, but the task is utilizing multiple cores within the same program. And the data set is not divided. Whereas in cluster computing or parallel computing, the task is divided into multiple subtasks, and the result is combined and put it to the user. So this is what happens is program is running on multiple processors or multiple cores. What is the driving force behind all this is complexity of the problem which is to be solved on the computer, which has governed to the evolution to this extent that now we have exascale computers already available in top 500 list. Yeah, the foundation of the computing in this modern era is Moore's law. Gordon Moore, who proposed this law in 1965. He was the co-founder of Intel and Fairchild Semiconductors, and then later he was CEO of Intel. So what he said was, the number of transistors on integrated circuit double every 2 years. And this is actually not a physics law. It is a prediction based on the historical data. So based on that, semiconductor industry is planning their future R&D projects, aligning their subsequent plans to come out with latest chips. And this has been the guiding force behind that. And it has provided exponential growth in terms of computational power, efficiency, and when the ICs are produced on a mass scale, it becomes more affordable because of the cost reductions. The impact is seen in our daily life. Faster processors, which are driving forces behind simulation, behind computations, and AI, and new era of gaming. And its widespread adoption has resulted into computing becoming more affordable. That's why I said that every one of us has got a smartphone in the pocket. Earlier, as Dr. Pahadia said that when the man landed on moon, the computational power used was equal to what you have in your pocket today. And then energy efficiency. Smaller transistors lead to less power consumption, enabling the portable devices. And new era has opened, new scenario has opened for HPC, high performance computing, AI, cloud computing, and gaming, which have been benefited from the scaling. If we see, sorry, this pointer will not work. If we see that 42 years of microprocessor trend data, if you see the number of transistors in terms of thousands of transistors, it has go on increasing over a period of years. And single thread performance, that is performance of processor, is measured by SpecInt, SpecFP. These are the performance calculations for a processor. So it has got, you see, it is going on increasing. the frequency of processor up to 2015-16 was going on increasing, but there was a point, because what happened was the power dissipation by the processor became too large to handle, and because you need to have the cooling arrangements for the processor, so it was felt that there should be smaller units known as processing cores, which will have ALUs and registers only, not a general purpose machine. So with ALUs and registers, you can go on increasing the number of processing cores and some reduced performance. The benefit was that, there is a white paper by Intel on this, the benefit was that the processing power was not compromised to a large extent. So you increase the number of cores and you get the sort of equivalent computing power with that increase in number of cores instead of increasing the gigahertz of the processor. So that's why the processor gigahertz is not increasing linearly after 2016, whereas number of cores in a processor are increasing. Currently 32 core, 64 core processors are available in the market. Typical power consumption when the concept of cores was introduced by semiconductor giants like IBM, like Intel. So power consumption came to steady state and sometimes at a lower rate. And number of logical cores which are available has gone on increasing. And this Moore's law has affected the evaluation of the computing. It has given the future, it has shaped the future of computing. But currently, if you see, the transistors are nearing the atomic scales, that is put a physical barrier, and difficult to manage the power densities, okay? And rising costs of manufacturing smaller nodes, because nanometer technologies are used for fabrication of processors, the costs are increasing, and scaling cores no longer is solving the complex problems. Because of proliferation of AI/ML based systems, you need to have certain other paradigms in computing. So that has given to rise of specialized hardware like GPUs, graphical processing units. They are nothing but processors only. They can divide the task into millions of smaller jobs and work on that all at once. GPUs are used extensively for AI-based computation for training of the model at the back end. And then TPUs, tensor processing units. This is developed by Google, not available for processing, buying, procurement. You can buy the compute on Google Cloud, but not the TPUs, and build your machine. FPGAs for efficiencies, and ASICs, application-specific ICs like NLU, LPU, they have been developed by various semiconductor giants, which are helping the applications, training the model for the AI systems. Here, it has given rise to heterogeneous computing, combining the power of CPU, GPU, FPGAs, ASICs for efficiency. And actually, there is a concept of near memory computing. You might be knowing it. NMC chips are launched where you carry the computational logic near to the source of data. So expensive data movements are stopped, and this has helped in resolving the memory wall issue. Memory wall issue was coined in 1994 because the computational power was being restricted by the memory bandwidth, the memory transfers, data transfer between memory to processor. So this near memory concept was evolved initially at the software level, and finally now chips are available. Edge computing, it is bringing computations and data storage both near to the source of data. Like if you remember content delivery networks for delivering the videos on demand to you, so that is from a server, a cluster available nearer to you, geographically nearer to you. And this has been now used widely by e-commerce companies for preparation of e-cards and presentation of websites, geographically nearer to the user. So in fact, Google also has got so many data centers across the world. So many clusters are deployed by them across the globe to provide you the source, the computation power near to the source of the data. And now beyond silicon, quantum computing, neuromorphic computing for a paradigm shift. So I'll be briefly touching in subsequent slides upon these points also. How many of you know about the top 500 list, that top 500 project, a global project? Probably none of you, sorry. So this top 500 is a project which lists the top 500 machines at international level twice a year, once in June, and another list comes out in November every year. This lists the top 500 supercomputers. Supercomputers in the sense they are non-distributed computers, non-distributed. Okay, so these systems have utilized GPUs. The top 10 machines in top 500 have utilized GPUs and other accelerators like TPUs and other machines, demonstrating the dominance of heterogeneous architecture in supercomputing phenomena. And ARM architecture also has played a very important role. Fugaku supercomputer of Japan, it topped the list in 2020, which is based on a ARM architecture. So even ARM architecture based machines are having a dominant role in HPC arena. And then interconnect. Interconnect plays a very vital role because there are so many nodes, they have to be connected to each other for communication at a very high speed. So something similar to 200 Gbps, 400 Gbps, currently in labs, 800 Gbps InfiniBand interconnects are being tested, and for very fast communication between the two processors. So this is playing a very important role. And for energy efficiency, there is a Green 100 list also, which it highlights the energy efficiency of the machines, and the most efficient system achieved performance per watt in the range of 60 plus gigaflops per watt. That is quite more than your, do you know how much is the processing power of your individual laptops? How do you calculate the performance of a machine? How do you calculate it? It is very simple formula, mathematical formula for calculating the theoretical performance of any machine. The clock frequency of the processor into number of processing cores and into floating point operations per second of that code name of processor. Because these semiconductor manufacturers like Intel, or AMD, they give that Skylake processor will have 16 flops per second or 8 flops. So that you have to take from the data sheet, and then you come to calculate you can calculate the theoretical computing power of the machine. And this list is actually topped by majority of the systems are from US and China, and few of them are from Japan. I'll tell you about the situation of Indian supercomputers also. Currently, earlier Intel was dominating the scenario of HPC. Now AMD has come into the picture. And the first exascale machine which came in 2022 list was based on AMD processor, its own GPU, its own CPU. And then because now NVIDIA, AMD, Intel, they all are in market for GPUs. Intel is not in GPUs. So there is a fierce market competition. So as a user, we are benefited. And Frontier, which was Frontier machine, first exascale machine, was powered by AMD GPUs and CPUs. And current machines, but I'll tell you one thing. This is whatever is published as white papers you can Google it. But the internal architecture of the InfiniBand, they don't publish because they are proprietary. So you don't get to know about the internal architecture of the InfiniBand interconnect, internal architecture of their proprietary processors in the top supercomputing list. These are the, actually Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore publishes a list of top 10 machines in, top 100 you can say machines in India every year. And these are the top machines in India dedicated to the nation by Prime Minister, Airavat, developed by CDAC Pune, Arka, and Arunika, Pratyush, and Arka AIML. These are the top 500 machines. You can see two parameters, Rmax and Rpeak for all these machines. And Rpeak is what I told you for calculating the theoretical performance of the machine. Rmax comes after benchmarking the system. There is a high performance LINPACK benchmark for non-distributed systems, and even top 500 supercomputers also use the benchmark. In fact, we also benchmark our systems using the same benchmarking routines, and then let us say hundreds of rounds of calculations on nonlinear partial differential equations are performed to come out to the what is going to be the performance of the system. So this Rmax shows that benchmarking, and this is known as sustained computing power of the computer. And this is actually will be available throughout its lifetime. Sometimes it is limited by if the cooling is less in the data center or power is not appropriate. So the sustained computing power may go slightly down. Little bit of cluster computing. These are basically multiprocessor machines working to solve a complex problem. It has got parallel components. They are processors having individual memories, and then high-speed interconnects to connect all the processors. And to the user, it appears as a single system. That is the main importance of a cluster machine, and even these supercomputers also are based on the cluster computing technology. And if I say the types of clusters, high availability clusters are used for critical applications like banking, e-commerce sites, reservation systems. High throughput clusters are extensively used for highly used websites, search engines, web-based email systems. High performance computing clusters are used for compute intensive scientific and engineering applications. So you see the applications are enormous, and as a user we all use those front end, we are the front end users, but at the back end these are the machines which are powering the computations. Hardware components are there, interconnect, storage, management server, software components are there. You need to have the operating system, resource manager, monitoring tools, compilers, libraries for parallelization, user management tool, backup recovery tools. All these hardware and software tool put together will make your cluster working. Some of the clusters at Department of Atomic Energy where I have been working for past 34 years are, and I'll tell you these are the published details about the clusters. You all know the sensitivity of the department. So these are publicly available clusters, like announced in public. Much bigger machines are also available, which are not announced in the public. This Anupam Atulya has got 14,720 cores, 368 compute nodes with V100 GPU accelerator, 128 number of GPUs, and 141 TB of main memory. And it has got a peak computing power of 2 petaflops and sustained computing power of 1.35 petaflops. And it provides a comprehensive software environment using compilers of variety of compilers, because the scientific applications, the accuracy is very important when you run the simulations or computations. So they have to be compiler specific, whether it is a Intel compiler or GNU or PGI compiler like that. And wide range of scientific applications are available. At Raja Ramanna Center for Advanced Technology, which is situated right away 2-3 kilometers from here, my team has built a cluster which is, it integrates Intel Xeon Skylake processors, 64 compute nodes. It has each compute node has got 2 processors, and each one has got total around, this cluster has got 2048 CPU cores, and it has got NVIDIA Tesla P100 GPU accelerator card. So we have got around 57,344 GPU cores in the machine, and it has provided a sustained computing power of 190 teraflops. That is, the theoretical power was 250 teraflops. The sustained computing power after benchmarking came out to be 190 teraflops. And this is it is housed in a data center. We have got 2 data centers at RRCAT, state-of-the-art data centers, and the biggest in Central Asia, and the machines are also biggest in Central Asia, India, sorry. And this machine is used extensively by the scientists and engineers at RRCAT. And now we are planning for much bigger machines. Just a glimpse of the kind of applications which are being used in DAE per se or RRCAT. Computational chemistry, material science, I am not going to go through the list because it will take a lot of time. These are the applications, commercially available applications as well as custom developed software systems are being used on these clustering platforms. We have got around 5 machines, cluster computing machines, on which these codes are being run. For molecular dynamics, biophysics, for nuclear reactor physics, these are the codes which are being used. For plasma physics, for accelerator physics, engineering multiphysics, these are the codes which are available with us. And if you see the general HPC applications in India, the Ministry of Earth Sciences uses HPC for operational weather forecasting. I had told you the big list of top 10 machines in India, top 5 machines I listed. So some of them are used for these kind of forecasting. IITM and NCM WF are key institutes using HPC for climate research. And high resolution monsoon models, they require significant computational resources because there are going to be number of iterations, and to converge to the solution, it requires lot of computational power, so they use HPCs. And even HPC is used for real-time flood forecasting in some regions in our country. And Government of India has established a National Scientific Computing Mission also to put various stakeholders under one umbrella to work for the development of future machines for our country. And in aerospace and defense, organizations like DRDO and ISRO use HPC for aerospace simulations and for missile trajectory simulation and modeling the flight paths of missiles and rockets. Actually, I would like to let you know the complexity of the HPC, because we give some program we run on the laptop. We get the output within, let us say, at the most few minutes. Whereas for scientific computations or such simulation and modeling, the code is being run for days together on such a powerful machine. In fact, even in RRCAT, where I belong to, the computations are running for months together on such powerful machines to converge to the solution. Then only the result is presented to the user or published in can be published in the international journals. So even such powerful machines, they require lot of time for coming to the solution. For cryptography and cybersecurity, also such machines are being used. In fact, for computational chemistry, material science, drug discovery, lot of computational resources are required. So all these are backed by the high performance computing machines. engineering and structural simulations, and big data machine learning. For training the deep learning models, you need to have a very powerful machine at the back end because of large data set. You need to have run the training on large data set many times on multiple data sets. So you need to have a very powerful machine at the back end. And India is investing heavily in AI research and development, which relies on HPC. For financial modeling, for risk management and investment strategies, they rely on computations being carried on HPCs. Genomics, bioinformatics also use these kind of computational machines. Even for urban planning and simulating urban growth, traffic flows, resource management across the smart cities, such computational powers are required. For analyzing financial markets, assessing risks, and predicting market trends, such powers are required. Computational powers of this tune are required. Why such paradigms? And why new paradigms? It is a human tendency that suppose you are devising a game to rotate a, let us say, cuboid in 2D or 3D, one cuboid. As soon as you finish that program, you will have this, why not two cuboids? Their interaction patterns. So human tendency to increase the complexity of the problem to be increased when you have the resources. This is a human nature. Once a problem is solved, you think of something else. You think of bigger problem. You think of complex problem. So complexity of the problem is increased, and subsequently the data size to be handled also increases. And time required to solve the complex problem is reducing. You want in fraction of seconds the result to be presented to you. So these are the factors which govern the expectations of users have increased, and these factors govern the rise of new paradigms. Users could be scientists, engineers, or even common people. In fact, even in our smartphone, if something takes some time, we think, क्या है, क्यों नहीं आ रहा है इसमें से, इतना time क्यों लग रहा है? So that is a human tendency. So that is why new paradigms are evolving, and now we see what has happened currently is exascale computing. Exascale computing is systems capable of greater than or equal to 1 exaflop. That is 10 raised to power 18 IEEE 754 double precision operations. That could be multiplications or additions per second. And they are driving breakthroughs in AI, climate modeling, drug discovery, material science, and things like that. Current exascale systems are, in 2022, first exascale machine was launched. It was USA in that top 500 list. And the November 2014 top 500 list announced this EI Capitan. This is 1.742 exaflops. You see the computing power of this machine, sustained computing power. And it has got theoretical computational power of 2.746 exaflops. And this was officially dedicated on recently, 9th January 2025 only. But you see, as I told you, making such systems require a lot of resources in terms of data centers, in terms of power, in terms of cooling requirements. So this exascale machines, the energy consumption for such machines is to the tune of 20 to 30 megawatt per system, which is equivalent to powering 15,000 homes in developed countries. And in our country, it can power more number of homes. So, and the one is capital cost, another is operational cost. These systems, operational cost is also very, very huge. This is $600 billion machine. And now there is an effort for a sustainable exascale computing to use accelerators, AI accelerators, to reduce the power consumption at reduced power consumption, provide more computing power. And the data centers could be based on solar, wind, or hydropower. And you need to have the liquid and immersion cooling techniques for cooling of these such high-end machines. And software optimization is also one field where one can think of working energy efficient algorithms. In fact, this spiking neural networks in AI, they start working only when they cross a threshold limit. So they are quite energy saving algorithms. So a lot of work is going on for energy efficient algorithms. AI driven power management is another area for such huge data centers. And the broader impact will be sustainable exascale computing will have lot of impact on health, energy, astrophysics, and many more fields. And climate modeling for addressing the global warming effects, global initiative in sustainable HPC development. Because I told you the exascale machine takes how much power, so you need to have the sustainable HPC systems for providing that power, the computational power at less electrical energy. These are the exascale computing market currently, the hardware, software, services, and here where it is used in government, defense, healthcare and biosciences, research and academia, financial services, manufacturing, energy, and others. You see the kind of market it has got, the kind of rise, the percentage rise in the market cap. What are the limitations of CPUs? Now we will see why these newer eras are coming. So general purpose tasks, the CPUs are designed for general purpose tasks. That's why they are bulkier, bigger, but they struggle with AI workloads. Because you all know that AI tasks requires matrix multiplications to large size matrix operations and convolutions. And the solution is specialized hardware based on accelerators like GPUs, TPUs, ASICs, LPU, NLU. So many have been launched, the specialized hardware in specific areas. They offer superior performance and at the same time energy efficiency. Performance even you get from the CPU and GPU combined together, but the energy efficiency comes from the accelerators like TPUs, NLU, LPU, and other things. Faster training, and when you need to train the deep learning models, you need a faster training and interference for larger models. All of us know this. And what is required is we need a greater energy efficiency at lower and lower operational costs. Because I told you the operational cost for an exascale machine is very huge, and latency also is to be reduced for real-time applications like self-driving cars, robotics, because even these application areas rely heavily on the computational power provided by the computational resources. And Edge AI is providing AI on resource-constrained edge devices. So there is a focus on edge devices currently. And hardware innovations, these hardware innovations are providing a breakthrough in deep learning for training of the deep learning models. And they are providing, helping in manufacturing, not at large scale, but to some level, edge devices are there. And cloud-based AI services which are powered by GPU and CPU, TPUs are available to a general public also currently by Google. Quantum computing, the next frontier, it utilizes quantum mechanics principles, superposition, entanglement, interference, operates with qubits for exponentially increasing computational power, whereas in traditional CPUs, if you increase some time limitation. So if in traditional CPUs, if you increase the number of bits, the performance increases linearly only, whereas in case of quantum computing, if you increase number of qubits, the performance increases exponentially, although the error is also there. And it is expected that it will solve the problems that are rather difficult for classical computers. And it will revolutionize the industries of pharmaceuticals, finance, material science, cryptography. Though it is in experimental stage only, companies like IBM, and IBM is the frontier in this, and then Google, Intel, they are at experimental stage only, and they are having research teams to reduce the quantum errors and working on reducing the quantum errors. And the next could be pneumomorphic computing, which mimics the brain of a human. So what happens is, how human brain works is, it has got neurons and synapses. So these machines based on pneumomorphic computing will learn and adapt in real time, in contrast to traditional AI algorithms where you need to train the using deep learning methods. You need to train the model and then use it subsequently. And in pneumomorphic computing, on the fly it is going to learn like human being. And event-driven processing, this will utilize the event-driven processing, as I told you, in spiking neural networks. So it is going to save a lot of energy, and integrated memory and processing avoids data transfer bottlenecks. So memory, logic and data on the same integrated circuit will save the costlier data transfers. And it will save energy for tasks like image recognition or speech recognition. IBM is leader in pneumomorphic computing. True North is architecture which is published by IBM, and it is highly efficient and low power processing, has got very low power providing high computational power at low energy. Energy means consumption of electrical energy. Analog computing is also at its lab state only, and it leverages physical laws of speed and efficiency, uses continuous signals like voltage, current instead of discrete bits, and it will apply physical laws, Ohm's law and other laws, to solve the computational problem. It will have the basic elements like integrators, summers, or differentiators, and you model the equation of problem to be solved using these integrators or differentiators, and then additional components could be there to solve the problem, and first of all model the problem and then solve it. And it is going to be highly energy efficient for tasks like linear algebra, differential equations. And advantages are that these analog circuits, they perform tasks very quickly. They will perform tasks very quickly, and ideal for energy efficient algorithms. So a lot of work is going on this technology at the labs of leaders like IBM, like Intel. At the end, I would like to say that major players like NVIDIA, Intel, IBM, AMD are investing heavily for extensive use of GPUs and AI workloads at present. And they are incorporating AI acceleration features in their processors, in their architectures, and coming out with AI accelerators in for variety of tasks. But as of now, I would say that people are better to work in broader spectrum of cognitive and social tasks, that too under wide variety of unexpected events and circumstances. There is a publication, full-fledged publication on this comparison also. So this is the crux of that publication, which I have put as a line here. And I will say that convergence of these latest technologies, exascale, AI, quantum, neuromorphic, and analog, will make transformative shift in high performance computing paradigm, which is the backbone of all whatever is available to us as a user. And in future, integration of these technologies, technological advancements will drive the next wave of scientific, industrial, and societal progress. Thank you all. नेशनल क्वांटम मिशन गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया हैज एस्टैब्लिश्ड
Ma'am-
एंड हाँ मैं समझ गया आपका क्वेश्चन।
थोड़ा हिंदी में
आपने
बताना
पूछा-
मुझे,
हाँ
थोड़ा हिंदी में।
हाँ देखिए आपने
Yes, ma'am.
पूछा है कि इंडिया की पोजीशन क्वांटम कंप्यूटिंग में क्या है, यही है ना क्वेश्चन?
हाँ, कंडीशन प्रोग्रेस।
एंड प्रोग्रेस।
यस मैम।
गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया ने एक स्टैब्लिश किया है नेशनल क्वांटम मिशन,
यस मैम।
है ना, और उसमें बहुत सारी एजेंसीज को इन्वॉल्व किया गया है जो लोग उसमें पूरा अपना एफर्ट्स लगाएंगे टू कम आउट विथ ओन। देखिए क्वांटम कंप्यूटिंग में सबसे इम्पॉर्टेंट है टू डिज़ाइन द आर्किटेक्चर एंड इवन डिज़ाइन द सॉफ्टवेयर एप्लीकेशन।
यस मैम।
तो इसमें से जिसमें भी हम फ्रंट में आ पाएँ, गवर्नमेंट का ये काम है, मतलब ये इरादा है। तो आपको अगर मैं बताऊं इंटरनेशनल सिनेरियो में, अगर आप मोस्ट साइटेड पेपर्स पता है, जैसे हम पब्लिकेशन करते हैं उनके साइटेशंस होते हैं, तो क्वांटम कंप्यूटिंग में अगर साइटेशन के हिसाब से देखें तो यूएसए फर्स्ट आता है, चाइना थर्ड आता है, इंडिया 20 नंबर पे आता है।
यस मैम।
लेकिन अगर पेटेंट्स के हिसाब से देखें तो 339 पेटेंट्स हैं इंडियंस के, और हम 9वें नंबर पे आते हैं। तो अभी एक इवॉल्विंग फील्ड है, लेकिन थ्रस्ट मतलब गवर्नमेंट का थ्रस्ट है, मतलब कि एफर्ट लगा रहे हैं, गवर्नमेंट भी लगा रही है कि हम इसमें एक वर्ल्ड के लीडर के रूप में उभरें,
यस मैम।
है ना।
मैम मेरे को क्वेश्चन है मेरा,
हाँ, बोलिए।
ये यूएसए सुपर कंप्यूटर में टॉप पे है, तो उसके कितने कंप्यूटर है टॉप 500 में?
उनके कितने कंप्यूटर
टॉप 500 में
नहीं पता।
मैम कितने हैं उसके पास?
हाँ,
कितने कंप्यूटर है टॉप 500 कंप्यूटर में?
टॉप 500 की जो आधे से ज़्यादा लिस्ट है ना,
हाँ, मैम।
यूएस की है।
मैम गिनती हूँ ऐसे
अच्छा।
कितने नंबर है ऐसे?
नंबर तो मतलब टॉप 500 के आधे से ज़्यादा, इन्हें
नहीं, मैं
250
वैसे
से भी
तो-
ज़्यादा आप मान लीजिए। और क्या हुआ है कि इतने सालों में उनकी मशीन टॉप कर रही थी, फिर 3 साल तक, 4 साल तक, 2 साल तक फुगाकू ने, जापान की मशीन ने टॉप किया था।
यस मैम।
फिर उसके बाद ये चाइना ने ओवरटेक कर दिया था सुपर कंप्यूटर में यूएसए को।
यस मैम।
चाइना की मशीन्स टॉप कर रही थी बहुत समय तक।
Yes, ma'am.
लेकिन 2022 से फिर जब इन्होंने एक्सास्केल कंप्यूटिंग का लॉन्च कर दिया,
यस मैम।
जो मैंने बताया आपको, फ्रंटियर है या फिर EI कैपिटन, तो अभी वो लोग टॉप पर वापस आ गए।
मैम एक और क्वेश्चन है मेरा, इससे ये भारत के ऊपर पाकिस्तान और चीन से अटैक होते हैं साइबर, उसका क्या व्यवस्था की है भारत ने अभी?
देखिए वो क्वेश्चंस में उसका आंसर पब्लिकली, मैं राइट पर्सन नहीं हूँ, लेकिन मुझे पता है वी हैव सुपर कंप्यूटर्स टू प्रोसेस द डेटा। बस मैं
Sorry,
इतना
ma'am.
बोल पाऊंगी।
मैम और कौन सा क्वेश्चन था मैम? सच बात नहीं सुना।
हाँ, अगले सेशन में आप सर से पूछ लीजिएगा।
Good afternoon, ma'am. I have a question. Ma'am, I am saying that क्या आपको लगता है कि जो अपने स्मार्टफोन्स के CPUs हैं,
हाँ।
वो PC के CPUs को रिप्लेस कर सकते हैं?
देखिए स्पेशलाइज्ड टास्क के लिए यस, लेकिन आप PC बहुत जनरल पर्पस के लिए यूज़ करते हैं। एट प्रेजेंट ऑल्सो यू कैन रिप्लेस इट, अगर आपका पूरा हार्डवेयर उस तरह का हो। लेकिन आप जो कुछ और काम करते हैं उस पर समटाइम्स इन फ्यूचर आप देखिएगा ज़रूर होगा ऐसा।
यस मैम, जैसे कि अभी देखा जा रहा है, आपने बोला फ्लोटिंग पॉइंट कंप्यूटेशंस, तो वो बहुत हाई स्कोर्स अभी अचीव कर लिए गए हैं क्वालकॉम के द्वारा, ऐसे स्नैपड्रैगन एलाइट प्रोसेसर पे, तो अभी उसको भी CPUs में यूज़ करा जा सकता है क्या?
एक्चुअली देखिए CPUs क्या होते हैं, पावर हंग्री हैं, इसीलिए तो आपके स्मार्टफोन में CPU नहीं यूज़ किया जाता है। अगर आप माइक्रो आर्किटेक्चर लेवल पे देखें तो CPU का जो माइक्रो आर्किटेक्चर होता है उसका इंस्ट्रक्शन सेट बहुत बड़ी होती है, क्योंकि वो डिज़ाइन होता है जनरल पर्पस टास्क के लिए। जबकि स्नैपड्रैगन आर्म प्रोसेसर्स जो होंगे ये रिस्क प्रोसेसर्स हैं, इनके एक लिमिटेड इंस्ट्रक्शन सेट होती है, तो उनका हार्डवेयर भी उस तरह से डिज़ाइन होता है। दैट इज़ वाई दे आर एनर्जी एफिशिएंट, कम एनर्जी लेते हैं और बैटरी पे चल जाते हैं। जबकि जनरल पर्पस टास्क के लिए आपका इंस्ट्रक्शन सेट बहुत बड़ा होना पड़ता है।
ओके,
थैंक यू सो मच।
Thank you, ma'am, for such an instigating speech. Now, I request Professor Angita Hirve, madam, to kindly present the token of gratitude to Professor Alpna Rajan, ma'am.